All right. And we are going to grab our next call. We are going out to Virginia. Daryl, he, him pronouns. What have you got for us today? You're talking with Secular Rarity, Blatant Blatheist, and Richard Gilliver. Daryl, are you there?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Daryl.
Oh, sweet fancy Moses. Have you ever been waiting to go on stage for an open mic and you hear all kinds of things that you weren't going to talk about, but then you were like, that's something I'd like to address?
All the time. What you got for us, though, man?
I really enjoyed this show. This was incredibly insightful. First of all, I think the thing about slavery in rap is very interesting because one of my favorite songs growing up was I believe it was March Prelude by Ja Rule, which is one of the most slave-soaked songs I've ever heard, but it's very catchy. And I also thought it was interesting because I'm Puerto Rican by birth, and our people, or Hispanic people, really are normally Christian. I think that's very strange considering the Spanish invasion and all that stuff. But I thought about that. I couldn't get my license renewed without certain documents. So I don't know how anybody would actually be able to claim reparations, even if they were legitimately supposed to be granted them. But thank you for all that. But I never considered that point about you wouldn't be able to, I guess, prove it.
Yeah.
Because I was always kind of in favor of reparations just as a general concept, but, I didn't really put that much thought into it.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know
that was a really great.
I'm sorry, I just bowled over that.
No, you're all good. You're all good. No worries. Let me see here because there was this one question, and I know Blayton and Richard definitely have some good thoughts on this. It sounded like you had a question about how to talk to people with differing opinions without being too aggressive or like being a jerk about it. Is that kind of a good encapsulation?
That's the summary, but more specifically, if you hear somebody say something that and could demonstrate that is untrue, how do you handle just letting them say it without saying anything? Like as a person.
Richard, Blayton, either of you guys?
I would start that off with just saying it's not my job to change people's minds. Like I'm gonna have my beliefs, you're gonna have your beliefs, and it shouldn't affect me that much what you believe. So that's just how I approach things. So even if I do get into the conversation, I'm not that invested to where it's an emotional thing for me.
Yeah, do you want to give me the question again so I can kind of get a specific answer to you? Give me a specific details.
It sounded like basically Daryl was saying like when you're in these tough conversations and somebody just says something that's just, blatantly false, right? Like how do you kind of push back on that without being a jerk?
I suppose I must clarify on that note, if I may interject.
Yeah, please.
I'm not speaking about being in a conversation with people on like a debate type of level or, even an argument type of level. Just casually, when I hear people say things like, oh, yeah, didn't you know that this is an innocuous, not serious example, but didn't you know that Marilyn Monroe was a size 20 or something, and she was actually like a size 4? Something like that. And I know it's pedantic to argue that, but I hear those things and it kind of triggers me because I want to be like, well, actually, that's not true. And I work in a customer service field, so there's often times where I have to hold my tongue on that for obvious reasons, but it hurts me, internally.
Yeah, for me, it's a matter of context, Daryl. For me, it's a matter of context. That, like you say, if you're at work, if you're talking to a close family member or a friend, if you're overhearing a conversation, and you hear some kind of weird bullshit statement come out that you think that's a little bit dodgy. It all depends on context. For me, as to how you respond to it. I'm quite happy if one of my real close friends says something which is way off the mark, I'll correct them. you know, and I'll have no problem with correcting them. And I've got the relationship with my close friends and, you know, my close family members that I can do that. And it's not taken in the wrong kind of the wrong light. If I'm overhearing it, if I'm at work, I'm a manager and I manage, sometimes it depends where I am. I can manage anything from teams up to from about 20 to 150 people. I do hear things that I find, you know, really bizarre on occasion. You know, there's one of the guys I manage is kind of one of these, I don't know what he would call himself, something like a druid, I would imagine. And he literally worships trees. And, you know, it's difficult when I want to engage with those people, but I can't do that. I can't do that when I'm at work. It's just not professional. So for me, it's all about the context, situational context, who you're talking to, where you are. You know, there's other people who I work with and I've worked with a long time, and I'm friends with outside work who kind of believe in ghosts and things, and I call them out on that all the time, even if we're at work, because we've got that kind of relationship. So for me, it's all a matter of context.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I think, you know, when it comes to close friends or family, right, one way that you can, you know, push back a little bit, you know, stronger on these incorrect statements is by showing that you're willing to have pushback on your topics, right? So when you bring up a difficult, you know, a controversial issue, and this person brings up a point that is actually a good point, you know, acknowledge it and take that time. Obviously, that type of rapport can't be built up with the, you know, random Joes in the grocery store checkout line. I think what can be very helpful in those instances is kind of like what I've talked about earlier about, you know, who am I being? And in this instance, how am I presenting this information? Am I presenting this in an aggressive manner? Am I presenting this with a smile on my face? Am I saying that's fucking wrong? Or am I saying, oh, I don't think that's correct? You know, and that those types of little things I think are very helpful. It's never going to be a perfect method, right? There's always going to be somebody that, you know, you're super kind and super chill and they still just bite your head off. There's always going to be that. But I find more often than not, right, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And that definitely has been helpful for me. So
for me, I've
You don't feel it
with
inside?
that kind of
hang on,
I do. That's the thing. Yeah, I do feel it. So here's my method that I've used. Like if I'm just out and about and I hear somebody say something that's ridiculous and I just feel the need to parse into it, I'm not going to approach that person because I grew up in America and a lot of us have guns. So I'm just going to let him do what he's doing. But what I will do is go online and just, hey, so I'm in the store and I hear this person saying this thing. What do you guys think about this? And I'll discuss it with people that I actually have a rapport with.
Great.
So I'm not going to approach this guy.
And that's one of the biggest reasons, Daryl, why I love being in places like this and doing this stuff is because before the show, Blatant Richard and I were, you know, woo-sawing and giggling about all the stupid shit we've heard that apologists have said in the last 2 days, you know, and we were all having fun. And this is one of those places and moments for me where I'm able to decompress from that, where I'm able to face palm and go, can you believe what this guy just said? Oh my God. And you know, again, that's not a perfect thing because you're not always going to have that opportunity to be in a community like that when you need it. But it is a place to start. It is a place to start. And yeah, it's always good to just vent a little bit of that frustration into the void, you know. But Richard,
how would you typically handle it, Daryl, if you just came across a kind of random person and you heard something that you found disagreeable?
Well, morally and I suppose ethically speaking, I consider myself to be a very misanthropic optimist and a futurist because I think a lot of things that we're doing, like scientifically and medically, will solve a lot of the problems that people have. However, I also currently drive non-emergency medical transport, so there are situations where I'm stuck in a small enclosed area with people that want to inform me about how, oh, COVID 1 through 18 was fine. What's wrong with COVID-19? Why is that so special? Or flat earthers and stuff like that. And I know they're their intention is to help me because they genuinely seem to think that I've been fooled this whole time. And the only thing I can say at that point is I'm not a scientist, but I'm not sure if anything that you're saying has any real backing. But I'd have to look into it.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the most,
Sometimes one of the best things you can do in that moment is just go, you know what? I actually don't know. Let's look it up right here, right now together and see if we can find that. You're not always going to get somebody, of course, that's willing to go through that. But when those times are available, yeah. See, when that time is available, that's awesome because it's no longer is it you saying, hey, like, oh, this is, oh, okay, you said COVID 1 through 18 are fine, so COVID-19 is fine. Bullshit. Instead of that coming from you, instead of you saying, no, this is a pandemic, this is a real thing, we should be taking our vaccines, you say, hey, you know what? Let's look into this. Let's see what the facts are. And then when you go pull up every major medical institution that says repeatedly,
those lies.
Yes, exactly. Every single one that comes up and says, hey, this is a serious thing. Like, stop lying to people and telling them that it's okay. Stop lying to people and telling them that they don't need a vaccine. You absolutely do. You absolutely need to be worried about this very real virus. That no longer is now, it no longer is coming from you just being combative. It's coming from a process that you took part in and participated with this other person. And so together, you guys get to find that answer. And that just that little bit of camaraderie, that little bit of compassion that's involved in that process, I think that shit goes a long, long way in these controversial discussions.
And go in with
it
with the
mindset internally.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Leighton.
I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
Go into it with the mind state that person that came to that conclusion most likely didn't come to it based on any information that they actually received,
right?
Or any good information, I should say. It's not going to be an evidence-based track that they went down.
Yeah.
So even if you can give them the evidence, it's probably not going to convince them. So going into it, have the mind state that I may not convince this person, and that's okay. That's how I deal with it internally.
Richard, how do you deal with it internally?
I'm old and I don't listen to people. So that's pretty much how I deal with it.
Richard's thoughts are become an old crabby person and you'll
become old and crabby. And, no, if I hear things like that, I just kind of, it's like water off a duck's back. I've heard it so many times. If I'm in a position to challenge it, I do challenge it. But as far as internally goes, people believe some really weird shit, and I've heard pretty much most of it, I think, over the years. So it doesn't really bother me emotionally. I'm aware that people think this. I think it's very important to understand that no matter how skeptical we are as well, that we are also prone to falling prey to. I nearly fell for a scam the other day, and I'm really, really careful with stuff where I got a kind of text message on my phone, and I work in communications, and I warn people about this all the time. But I if you get scam stuff, usually it's like, say, it's some company that you've never heard of before. This one was actually pretended to be from my own mobile provider, and I was like, oh God, do I owe them money? I better check that out. What I actually did was go through my own mobile provider to check it out, rather than, so I did have the kind of nous about me to not fall prey to the scam and click on the link, but it nearly took me in, and I'm really, really careful about this. So I try and be a little bit generous to people when I hear kind of not these really out there kind of claims, but if it's some kind of mundane claim, I try and be a little bit generous to people, because we can all fall prey to it. We're all, we're all susceptible to being tricked or being tripped up by things. And I think that's important to bear in mind as well.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up, Daryl, and I'll give you the last little thoughts here. But for me, you know, a couple of the biggest things that I do that helps me internally on these moments where it's just beating your head against a freaking wall, frustrating. One of the things for sure is I channel that frustration and I channel that energy into doing things like this. And I know it's not always possible, right? And it's not always something that everybody wants to do. Like, hey, let me be the host of a call-in show, or like, let me just start my own podcast or whatever. But sometimes even just messaging a friend of yours that you know is in the same boat as you, and just kind of venting that stuff off your chest can just be really, really helpful. And then another thing, like I said earlier, is these types of communities, these types of places where I can hit up Blayton, or I can hit up Richard, or I can hit up Cynthia or Bar and just, you know, be able to say like, look, man, this is ridiculous. Like, what the hell did this guy just say to me? You know, and we just get that, you know, little bit of collective woo-saw and that reminder that, you know, we're not alone in this. There are lots and lots of people who are ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with us and provide us that support and comfort that are on our team. You know, those things are really, really helpful for me. But yeah, give us your last thoughts, Daryl, and we'll let you go on with the rest of your day.
Oh, I appreciate it. It was definitely worth the wait. I appreciate all of your thoughts, and it sounds like you guys are on my side with the simple notion that I actually like when I find out that I was wrong about something that I thought was true.
Yeah.
And it seems to be very uncomfortable for other people. And, well, that, you know, makes me the jerk, I guess, because like I'm always just asking, like, if people challenge me about something, I'm always asking, like, what do you mean? Can you explain this, et cetera, et cetera. And usually it comes to an emotional point, which I disconnect with, and it becomes uncomfortable. But, you know, I'm planning on starting my own just funsies channel with videos, because I went to film school and everything. And, you know, maybe I'll have an outlet of this ilk at some point in the future. But I greatly appreciate your discourse with me. And, oh, wait, did somebody have an album coming out or something? Did I hear?
Blatant. Yeah. Go on YouTube and look up Blatant Blaytheist, man. You're definitely, you're going to be thanking us. So.
All right. Well, I'll let you know when I do.
Heck yeah. Well, Daryl, thanks so much. We do appreciate it. Oh, sorry. I think I might have cut you off a little quickly there, but that's okay, because I thought that was a really good call, and that's always something that's worth taking time to talk about, I think. So.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad he said he's making a channel, because that's like, I say like 90% of the videos I do start with going through Facebook and looking at comments and like, you know what, I'm going to rebuke that. Like,
yeah,
like that's half my videos.